Good morning, ghouls and gals. Happy Saturday, and today is going to be the start of my last Summerween reading vlog. I am doing Saturday and Sunday. If you watched my last one, you know that I have been falling a little bit behind. I have only finished one book on my TBR, but we're going to rectify that today. I'm getting ready to sit down and do some quality reading time, and hopefully I can finish my current book, which is Drackle by J.D. Barker and Dr. Stoker. So getting ready to do that. I also started Pet Sematary on audio, so I have listened to about an hour of that today, and I'm going to keep listening to that one. It's 15 hours if you just listen to it at regular speed, but I listen at 1.5, sometimes 1.75 speed, so I'll be able to at least get a big chunk of that out of the way today as well. So I'm going to get reading, and we'll just kick this reading vlog off with the first reading montage. So I am almost done with Drackle. I have like 5 more pages of the author's note left, and the author's note's kind of cool. It's talking about just like the original Dracula story and how different it was, and how apparently Bram Stoker wanted to publish it as nonfiction. It's wild, but I'm reading it, and there is talk of just different origins of vampires and the vampire tales, and one of these things that's in there that was in the book and that's in some folklore, I think it's Romanian folklore, is the Schoolomance, which is a school in the mountains where the devil teaches mysteries of nature, only 10 pupils at a time, and the devil retains one as payment, which was supposed to be kind of like vampires sort of thing. But Schoolomance is actually the title of Naomi Novak's new series. So that just made me a whole lot more interested in picking up that series, because I don't know if there will be vampires in the Schoolomance series, because it just definitely depends. Like, the devil in this was Count Dracula, but the devil could be something else in that series. So just kind of seeing that referenced has made me 10 times more excited to pick that book up. But back to reading. So I'm now officially done with Drackle. It was like pretty good, honestly. I had no idea what I was getting into. I just have such a soft spot for vampires. Dracula is probably like my favorite classic, and I really enjoyed reading this. I think it's pretty cool that Dr. Stoker is so invested with his family, and this is kind of like a labor of love on his part, because according to the author's note, there is a lot in the original text of Dracula that was cut out, and obviously all books do have editing pretty much before they get published in traditional publishing. Bram Stoker wanted to publish Dracula as nonfiction, and there was like about 100 pages that were completely missing from Dracula, and that were obviously taken out because people, like editors, did not want to publish it as nonfiction for obvious reasons. I mean, it's talking about vampires, so I just thought it was really cool because apparently there is a new translation of Dracula that's coming out. The Mir Mercana, because when Bram Stoker wanted to publish Dracula, he sent his manuscript to different publishers in different places. So what was published was a little bit differently. So the English version and the most popular version that got edited heavily and a lot was taken out was just in the English version and the one that we all know. So there's apparently like a new translation that I'd be really interested in picking up and seeing the differences, because I think that would be really neat. So I did enjoy this. If you don't like vampire fiction, I just don't pick it up. It does kind of give you almost like Penny Dreadful vibes in terms of it's like a really cool period piece with some liberties that are taken, and obviously vampires, which are really cool, but you know, I love a good vampire story. Not everyone does, and that's fine, but I really enjoyed this. And also it follows not only Bram Stoker, but his two siblings, Thornley and Matilda, and those are both actual people, just like Bram Stoker, obviously. But I thought it was really cool that we got to follow his siblings as well. So I did really enjoy this. The one thing that I didn't really enjoy about this was that it was written a lot in epistolary format with letters and journal entries. That is definitely a callback to how Dracula was written, but they just felt like point of view chapters. They did not feel like journal entries or diary entries. So I feel like those could have been taken out and put into more of a point of view lens. There are 3 parts in this book. The first part is like the childhood experiences and early childhood of Bram, which I thought was really exciting. The middle part was the longest part and is probably like the slowest part, to be honest. There's a lot of talking and planning about what they're going to do about the situation they're in. And then the third section, actually, which is also really short, actually gets rid of like the diary entry format and just moves to point of view, which I thought was really nice. It also read like the diary journal points of view entries, so I just felt like you could have taken that out and it would have made more sense. But I understand why that was in there, because that's how Dracula was written, and this is obviously an ode to that book. So finally finished this. This is my second book. I finished Heart-Shaped Box a couple days ago, and the day is still young. It is about 3:30 right now, so I have plenty of time to pick up another book. Still in a physical reading mood, and the rest of my books are on audio, or I do have a library copy of an ebook for Kill Creek. So we'll see what I pick up next, and I will check back in with you guys a little bit later. Good morning and happy Sunday and happy last day of the Summerween readathon. I'm feeling very spooky today because I just got my new Exorcist shirt from Graveyard Goods, so that's exciting. And I actually finished 2 books yesterday, which I was not planning on, which is why I did not update you guys at the end of last night. But after I finished Dracula, I think I mentioned that I wanted to pick up another physical book, but nothing else on my TBR was really too physical, other than I think I had mentioned I wanted to start House of Leaves, but that is not a readathon book. So we're hoping to get to that in September. I picked up Kill Creek, and I read it on my phone. It's my least favorite way to read, but we did it. I finished it. I read pretty much 90% of it last night, and then I finished the last like 3 or 4 chapters this morning, and I enjoyed it. I think it is probably my least favorite book, unfortunately, that I've read of the readathon thus far, and it's a little nerve-wracking because it's like the first book that I finished for this readathon, Heart-Shaped Box, is my favorite, and then it was on par with Dracula, I would say. Actually, it's just different. They're very hard to compare and contrast because I think overall Kill Creek was a better written book, but I just felt like I would have taken it in a different direction. And I think the big difference for me is that even though Kill Creek was written better, the characters in Dracula, like we had that connection to Bram Stoker and just kind of a little bit more characterization. Not a lot of characterization. They're both plot heavy books, but I enjoyed the characters better in Dracula than I enjoyed the characters in Kill Creek. They just felt a little tropey. I really didn't enjoy the way the only female main character was written. She did get better as the story went on, but especially her first couple of chapters were just, you could tell a man was writing descriptions of a woman, if you know what I mean. And there's also a fat main character who, just the way he's described, is just not very nice, and it's excessive every time it's mentioned. Every time he moves, his size is mentioned, even when he's just walking across the room. Didn't have anything to do with the story, so didn't really need to be in there. So the characters were like not the best. But if you're looking for haunted house horror that does some new things, because if you read the synopsis for Kill Creek, it's about 4 horror authors that are invited to spend a night at a haunted house. None of them are believers, even though they all write horror about supernatural things, and they spend the night at this house and things start going down. That's all you get. I would say the first half of the book was very impeccable for me. It was a very slow burn haunted house horror, and I absolutely loved that aspect of it. Scott Thomas does an amazing job writing horrific descriptions and things that you can really visualize, so I really enjoyed that slow burn. It went in a different direction, which at first I was really shocked at and thought it was done really, really well. But I feel like the middle part went on far too long, and then the ending was good and kind of brought things back a little bit. But there were a lot of plot twists that some of them, I didn't realize there would be plot twists because I felt like you're already given all of the information kind of in the beginning first half of the book. I didn't realize you're supposed to be shocked by some revelations, and I would have liked more of an explanation to actually why the haunting was there in the first place, because it's kind of explained but in a convoluted way. So all of this sounds like I really hated this book. I didn't. It was actually a lot better, I thought, than Scott Thomas's second book, Violet. At least for me, it just had some more tropes and horror things that worked well for me. So yeah, I don't want you to think that I hated it, because I definitely didn't hate it. I read almost the entirety of it in one sitting, because you definitely want to figure out what happens next. It's just, for me, haunted house horror is my favorite genre of horror, and especially like ghosts and possessions. I mean, I'm wearing an Exorcist shirt right now, but that being said, because it is one of my favorite genres, I'm very, very, very particular about what I like. And I will say I am very glad that I didn't read it like 2 years ago when it really blew up. I feel like it was almost one of those viral books on Bookstagram about 2 years ago when it first came out, because I believe this was actually like a crowdfunded book or like an independent publisher, something like that. The book itself is beautiful. It's one of those paperbacks that have like the dust jacket flaps built into it and deckled edges. It's super cool. But everyone was saying how it was the scariest book they'd ever read, stuff like that. So I'm glad I didn't read it then, because there were some genuinely creepy moments in here. It's very hard for me now to get genuinely creeped out by a book. So there were a lot of scary moments in here. That being said, I think most people that I saw on Goodreads preferred the second half rather than the first half, and I liked the first half a lot better. So just when going into this one, it starts very slow. It is a very slow burn horror where there are a lot of things like creaks in the floorboards and mysterious smells and things out of the corner of your eye that it takes a while to really ramp up the haunting. So if you're not a big fan of slow burn horror, might not be the best one for you. But honestly, if you're not a character-driven reader and you're more invested in plot and horror tropes that kind of get turned on their heads a little bit, I think you would really like this one, because it very much feels like a slasher movie almost at times, because I mean there's a high body count in this book, so don't get too attached to anyone. So I know there are a lot of people who really love that genre of horror. For me, it's a little harder too because I'm a very character-driven person. So it is like 12:30 right now, and I have 2 books left on my TBR. I'm only gonna have time to do one of them. I think if I really push through, I will be able to finish Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I'm like 3 hours of the way through that one, so fingers crossed. I am really enjoying this one, and this is a book that I've actually started multiple times because I'm actually gonna have a quick little story time about Pet Sematary because I should have read this book a long time ago, but I've never been able to finish it. So the first time that I tried to read Pet Sematary was in 2012. I was in high school. It was like summer going into fall. I had wanted to read Pet Sematary for a while because I definitely feel like Pet Sematary is one that even if you haven't read the book, everyone kind of knows the plot. So I started to read it, and then like the week that I actually started to read it, we figured out that our family dog, we had to put her down. If you know what Pet Sematary is about, or even if you don't, just judging on the name of the book, it has a lot to do with dead pets, so that was very triggering for me, so I put it down. There's a lot of explorations of death and themes of death, and just the different ways how it's almost a little more tragic in some ways, how animals, especially companion animals, are here for a very short amount of time and they usually die before we do. So I wasn't ready to read it. So I had shelved it for a while, a very long time, up until last year. Started reading it, got a little bit farther than I did the first time I tried to read it, was really enjoying it. I'd actually started listening to it on audiobook this time. Michael C. Hall does a great job, and me and my fiance were listening to it on a car trip home to visit my family for Memorial Day? Memorial Day. And my current family dog, at that point, he managed to get out of the house that weekend and actually got hit by a car. I saw it happen. I helped take him to the emergency vet. It was crazy traumatic. We thought he was going to lose his leg. Turns out it was like one of those freak accident lucky strokes where it just missed all of the major arteries and things like that. And he just had to get just extensive stitches up and down his leg. So for all intents and purposes, best case scenario. But one of the inciting incidents in Pet Sematary is the family cat gets hit by a car on a busy road and dies. So even though my family dog Charlie was completely fine, well, obviously not completely fine, he had to do surgery, and he's just now like recovering and being able to walk without limping on it, but he's alive and he's fine and he has all 4 legs. But I just couldn't listen to it after that, so I put it down. So this time, very nervous, I'm not going to my family's house until I'm done with it, because it's just, that book is just not great for their family pet. I have a dog, you've seen him in plenty of vlog footage, Bruce, so that makes me a little bit nervous. So I've knocked on wood several times. 3rd time's a charm, but that is the story of how I've started Pet Sematary a number of times, and each time I have, something tragic has happened to the family dog. So I definitely want to read it, but it does make me a little bit nervous. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. So yeah, so I'm gonna go read that now and just not let my dog out of the house until I'm done with it. So I will check back in with you guys later. Hopefully once I finish it, I'm hoping to finish it and have that be like the last book of the readathon. So it is Monday. It is the end. Well, yesterday was the end of the Summerween readathon, and I didn't finish Pet Sematary. So today is the last day of August, so I am going to push through and read it and finish it by the time that September comes around so I can include it in my August wrap up. But I am really enjoying it so far. I will say in the beginning it's not so much scary as it is sad. There is a lot of debate and discussions about mortality and death. In particular, the main couple in this, they have a discussion early on about how young is too young to talk to their kids about death, and their young daughter kind of realizes for the first time that, you know, everyone's going to die because they see this pet cemetery that is outside of their house in their property, and she's very beaten up about it because she realizes her cat is going to die before she does, and then eventually her parents are going to die, and then she's going to die. So a lot of that is discussed, and you know, it's a truly horrifying subject. It's, you know, one of the bad things about being human is that we know that we're gonna die and we don't know what comes after. So Rachel, the wife, does not want to tell their daughter everything about death just yet, and this stems from trauma that she has had as a kid, and she just wants to keep her children as innocent and as happy and free from thinking about that as possible. Lewis, however, is a doctor, and due to his line of work, he is more deeply intertwined with life and death on a daily basis, so he thinks it a very natural thing. He doesn't think that they should shy away from it. He doesn't think that they should sugarcoat it. So it's been a lot of conversations about that. And then his very first day on the job, because they've just moved to a new house because of Lewis's job, he's going to be a interim kind of doctor, so a residential doctor for a university. His first day there, a college student dies very horrifically, and that kind of brings up the questions more. So I feel like this book is going to be very scary, but also just very deep and moving, and I have heard that a lot, so it's gonna be an intense read. And I think even more so because I do know what happens, just experiencing the journey, it's just gonna be a lot more sad than it is horrific. Like, I'm not gonna be scared while I'm reading it. It's just, it's gonna be a deep one, so I'm glad that I'm finally finishing it. My dog's fine, my family's dog's fine, by the way, so that's good. But the books that I did read for this readathon, I read Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. I loved this one. I've not been let down by a single Joe Hill full-length novel yet. If you're looking for a very good supernatural ghost story with some very scary and unsettling moments, it has a really good audiobook, and it also has some sentimental moments in there as well. That's a really good one. There's also some really good dogs in there, which really pull on my heartstrings as a dog lover. So I really enjoyed that one. And then I read Kill Creek. This one was good as well. I could see the audiobook for this one being very creepy as well, because there is a lot of terrifying descriptions in here, especially at the beginning when the hauntings is just starting. I think a lot of those little things that you see out of the corner of your eye, or some creaking floorboards, stuff like that, an audiobook might be a really good way to go. I didn't enjoy the way I read it. I read it on an ebook reader. Would have preferred reading the physical book or listening to it via audio, but that's no fault of the books. I enjoyed it. It was a pretty solid haunted house book, and I did talk about that at length earlier in this vlog, so I'm not going to get too far into it. And then my last book that I did finish was Dracula, and I really enjoyed this one as well. I love Dracula. I think if you're a fan of Dracula, or even if you've read Dracula, I do think to enjoy this book, you would have to have read Dracula, so you kind of know where Bram is coming from, and kind of how you can see in this book how true life events that Bram went through actually inspired the writing of Dracula. So I think there's like a lot of Easter eggs, stuff like that in here that you probably wouldn't enjoy as much had you not read the original text. So all in all, even though I didn't finish Pet Sematary, I had a really good couple of reading days, and honestly most of my reading did get done the second half of the readathon, so not too shabby. I would say that it was a very good start to the spooky season. September's coming up, so I'm excited to dive even more into some more good horror books. And that is going to bring us to the end of our vlog. So if you made it this far, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe for more content from me. Stay safe, stay well. I'm so glad you're here, and I will catch y'all in my next video. Bye!